Friends, again I would like to present before you the Olympic Games. The Games are important international event featuring summer and winter sports. Summer Olympic Games and Winter Olympic Games are held every 4 years. Originally, the ancient Olympic Games were held in ancient Greece at Olympia. The first games were in 776 BC. They were held every 4 years until the 6th century AC. The first modern Olympics happened in 1896 in Athens, Greece. Athletes participate in the Olympics Games to represent their country. Over time, the Olympics have become bigger. In old times, women were not allowed, but now there are women's events. The Winter Games were created for ice and snow sports. The Paralympic Games were created for athletes with physical disabilities. As well as the Olympics became bigger with the addition of the Youth Olympic Games for teenage athletes. World War I and World War II led to the cancellation of the 1916, 1940 and 1944 Games. As the decision-making body, the International Olympic Committee (IOC) is responsible for choosing the host city for each Olympic Games. The IOC is also responsible for choosing what sports are in the Games. The creator of modern Olympics is Baron Pierre de Coubertin. The celebration of the Games includes many rituals and symbols such as Olympic flag and torch, as well as the opening and closing ceremonies. The first, second and third place finishers in each event receive respectively gold, silver and bronze medals. There are some fun facts about the Olympics. The gold medals were only made of pure gold up to 1912. These days they are made of silver and have a gold plating. The medals for the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo were made from recycled electronics such as smartphones, digital cameras, handheld gaming consoles and laptops. In 1908, the Olympics ran for 187 days. The youngest medalist ever in an individual event was Inge Sorsen from Denmark. She won a bronze medal in the 200-meter breaststroke in 1936. She was only 12. The Olympic flags rings represent the 5 continents of the world, which are Africa, America, Asia, Europe and Oceania. The colors were chosen because they all appear on the flags at all the competing nations around the world. In the 1912 Olympics, there was a wrestling match that lasted 11 hours. Electronic timing devices were first used in 1912. At the opening ceremony, the host team always walks last in the parade of nations. The first country is always Greece, where the Olympics originated. The parade was first held in the 1908 Games in London. No white person in history has ever run the 100 meters in under 10 seconds. Nadia Comaneci was the first gymnast to score a perfect 10. Michael Phelps holds the record of winning the most Olympic medals. He was won 28 medals, 23 gold, 3 silver and 2 bronze. Ancient Olympics. The Olympics of ancient Greece featured mainly athletic but also combat and chariot racing events. During the Olympic Games, all struggles among the participating city-states were postponed until the Games were finished. The origin of these Olympics is shrouded in mystery and legend. According to legend, it was Hercules who first called the Games Olympic and established the custom of holding them every 4 years. The most widely accepted date for the beginning of the ancient Olympics is 776 BC, based on inscriptions of the winners of a foot race held every 4 years starting then. The ancient games featured running events, a pentathlon consisting of a jumping event, discus and javelin throws, a foot race and wrestling, boxing, wrestling, equestrian events. There is no agreement on when the games officially ended, but many historians think it is in 393 AD when the Emperor Theodosius I declared that all pagan religious practices should end. Another date might be 4 to 6 AD when the next emperor, Theodosius II, ordered the destruction of all Greek temples. After the Olympics stopped, they were not held again until the late 19th century. The growth of Olympics. An attempt to copy the ancient Olympic Games was the L'Olympiade de la République, a national Olympic festival held annually from 1796 to 1798 in revolutionary France. The competition had several sports from the ancient Greek Olympics. Greek interest in bringing back the Olympic Games began with the Greek War of Independence from the Ottoman Empire in 1821. It was first proposed by poet and newspaper editor Panagiotis Sotosos in his poem Dialogue of the Dead, published in 1833. Evangelist Zaphas, a wealthy Greek Romanian philanthropist, first wrote to King Otto of Greece in 1856 offering to fund a permanent revival of the Olympic Games. Zaphas sponsored the first Olympic Games in 1859, which was held in Athens. Athletes from Greece and the Ottoman Empire participated. Zaphas funded the restoration of the ancient Panathenaic Stadium so that it could host all future Olympic Games. Between 1862 and 1867, Liverpool held an annual Grand Olympic Festival. It was created by John Hewley and Charles Milley. With support from Dr. Brooks, these games were unfair in nature since only men could complete. In 1865, Hewley, Dr. Brooks and E.G. Ravenstein founded a National Olympian Association in Liverpool, a forerunner of the British Olympic Association. Its articles of foundation provided the framework for the International Olympic Charter. Dr. Brooks copied the sports which were in the Olympics held in Athens in 1859 in future Wenlock Olympian Games. In 1866, a National Olympic Games in Great Britain was organized by Dr. Brooks at London's Crystal Palace. The Panathinaiko Stadium hosted Olympics in 1870 and 1875. 30,000 spectators attended that games in 1870. Although no official attendance records are available for the 1875 games. In 1890, after attending the Olympian Games of the Wenlock Olympian Society, Baron Perry de Coubertin created the International Olympic Committee. Coubertin built on the ideas and work of Brooks and Zaphas with the aim of creating an Olympic Games that would occur every 4 years in a different country. He presented these ideas during the first meeting of the newly created International Olympic Committee (IOC). This meeting was held from June 16 to June 23 in 1894 at the Sorbonne University in Paris. On the last day of the meeting, it was decided that the first Olympic Games, to be controlled by the IOC, would take place 2 years later in Athens. The IOC elected the Greek writer Demetrius Viklas as its first president. The first games held under the IOC was hosted in the Panathinaik Stadium in Athens in 1896. These games brought 14 nations and 241 athletes who competed in 43 events. Zapas and his cousin Konstantinos Zapas had left the Greek government money to fund future Olympic Games. This money was used to pay for the 1896 Games. George Everoff paid for the refurbishment of the stadium in preparation for the Games. The Greek government also provided money which was paid back through the sale of tickets. Money was also paid back through the sale of the first Olympic commemorative stamp set. The Greek officials and public were excited about hosting these games. This feeling was shared by many of the athletes who even demanded that Athens be the host of the Olympic Games on permanent basis. The IOC did not approve this request. The IOC stated that each games would be held in a different country. Between 1912 and 1948, art competitions were a part of the Olympics. Medals were awarded for works of art inspired by sport, divided into 5 categories: architecture, literature, music, painting, and sculpture. The juried art competitions were abandoned in 1954 because artists were considered to be professionals, while Olympic athletes were required to be amateurs. The competitions were part of the original intention of the Olympic movement. The Winter Olympic Games. The Winter Olympics were created for snow and ice sports that were not part of the Summer Games. Figure skating, ice hockey were Olympic events at the Summer Olympics. At the 1921 Olympics Congress in Lausanne, it was decided to hold a winter version of the Olympic Games. A Winter Sports Week was held in 1924 in Chamonix, France. The IOC ruled that the Winter Olympic Games be celebrated every 4 years on the same year as the Summer Games. This pattern continued until the 1992 Games in Albertville, France. After this, beginning with the 1994 Games, the Winter Olympics were held on the third year of each Olympiad. Youth Olympic Games started in 2010. It helped to develop young athletes for the Olympic Games. Athletes between the age of 14 and 18 compete. The Youth Olympic Games were created by IOC President Jacques Ruck in 2001 and approved during the 119th meeting of the IOC. The first Summer Youth Games were held in Singapore from 14 to 26 August 2010. The first Winter Games are shorter than the Olympic Games. These games are the versions will last 12 days and the winter version will last 9 days. The IOC will allow 3,500 athletes and 875 officials to take part at the Summer Youth Games. 970 athletes and 580 officials will take part at the Winter Youth Games. The sports to be played will be the same as it at the Olympic Games. The Olympic movement. It includes a large number of national and international sporting organizations and federations. As the group in charge of the Olympic movement, the International Olympic Committee (IOC) is responsible for selecting the host city, overseeing the planning of the Olympic Games, changing the sports involved, agreeing sponsorship and broadcasting rights. The Olympic movement is made of 3 major elements. International federations are the governing bodies that supervise the sport at an international level. For example, the International Federation of Association Football (FIFA) is the IF for football, soccer, and the Federation International de Volleyball (FIVB) is the international governing body for volleyball. There are 35 IFs in the Olympic movement representing each Olympic sport. National Olympic Committee (NOCS) represent and regulate the Olympic movement. Organizing Committee for the Olympic Games are the temporary groups responsible for the organization of a specific Olympic Games. Each group is dissolved after each Games once the final report is delivered to the IOC. French and English are the official languages of the Olympic movement. The other language used at each Olympic Games is the language of the host country. The symbols of the Olympic logo, also known as the Olympic rings, consist of 5 intertwined rings and represents the unity of the 5 inhabited continents: America, Africa, Asia, Australia and Europe. The color version of the rings, blue, yellow, black, green and red, over the white field forms the Olympic flag. The flag was adopted in 1914 but flown for the first time at the 1920s Summer Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium. The flag has since been flown during every Games. The Olympic motto is Citus Altius Fortius, a Latin expression meaning faster, higher, stronger. Before each Games, the Olympic flame is lit in Olympia in a ceremony that reflects ancient Greek rituals. A female performer, acting as a priestess, lights a torch with the use of the sun. The woman then lights the torch of the first relay bearer, starting the Olympic torch relay that will carry the flame to the host city's Olympic Stadium. The flame has been an Olympic symbol since 1928, and the torch relay was introduced at the 1936 Summer Games. The Olympic mascot was introduced in 1968. The mascot is either an animal or human figure representing the cultural heritage of the host country. And there are the ceremonies. The grand opening is there. As mandated by the Olympic Charter, various elements frame the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. Most of these rituals were established at the 1920s Summer Olympics in the Antwerp. The ceremony typically starts with the hoisting of the host country's flag and performance of its national anthem. The host nation then presents artistic displays of music, singing, dance and theatre representative of its culture. After the artistic portion of the ceremony, the athletes parade into the stadium grouped by nation. Greece is traditionally the first nation to enter in order to honor the origins of the Olympics. Nations then enter the stadium alphabetically according to the host country's chosen language. The host country's athletes are always the last to enter. During the 2004 Summer Olympics, which was hosted in Athens, Greece, the Greek flag entered the stadium first and last. When it came into the stadium for the second time, it was followed by athletes. And the closing ceremony of the Olympic Games takes place after all sporting events have concluded. Flag bearers from each participating country enter the stadium. They are followed by the athletes who enter together without any national distinction. 3 national flags are hoisted while the corresponding national anthems are played. The flag of Greece to honor the birthplace of the Olympic Games, the flag of the current host country, the flag of the country hosting the next summer or winter Olympic Games is also flown. The president of the organizing committee and the IOC president make their closing speeches. The games are officially closed and the Olympic flame is put out in what is known as the Antwerp ceremony. The mayor of the city that organized the games transfer a special Olympic flag to the president of the IOC. The president then passes it on the mayor of the city hoisting the next Olympic Games. After these compulsory elements, the next host nation briefly introduces itself with artistic displays of dance and theatre representative of its culture. The medal presentation. A medal ceremony is held after each Olympic event is concluded. The winner, second and third place competitors or teams stand on top of 3-tier rostrum to be awarded their respective medals. After the medals are given out by an IOC member, the national flag of the three medalists are raised while the national anthem of the medalist country plays. The Olympic Games program consists of 26 sports, 30 disciplines and nearly 300 events. For example, wrestling is a summer Olympic sport, comprising two disciplines, Greco-Roman and freestyle. Olympic sports are governed by international sports federations, recognized by the IOC as the global supervisors of those sports. There are 35 federations represented at the IOC. Changes can happen to the list of sports in the Olympics. Sports can be added or removed from the list on the basis of two-thirds majority vote of the members of the IOC. The first major change to the list was performed. This resulted in the removal of baseball and softball from the list of sports for the 2012 London Games. Since there was no agreement in the promotion of two other sports, the 2012 program will feature just 26 sports. The 2016 and 2020 games will return to the maximum of 28 sports given the addition of rugby and golf. The exclusion of professionals caused several controversies throughout the history of the modern Olympics. The 1912 Olympic pentathlon and decathlon champion Jim Thorpe was stripped of his medals when it was discovered that he had played semi-professional baseball before the Olympics. His medals were restored by the IOC in 1983 on compassionate grounds. As class structure evolved through the 20th century, the definition of the amateur athlete as an aristocratic gentleman became outdated. Beginning in the 1970s, amateurism requirements were gradually phased out of the Olympic Charter. After the 1988 Games, the IOC decided to make all professional athletes eligible for the Olympics. Subject to the approval of the IFS, as of 2004, the only sport in which no professionals compete is boxing. Although even this requires a definition of amateurism based on fight rules rather than on. In men's football, only 3 professional players over the age of 23 are eligible to participate per team in the Olympic tournament. And lastly, the host nations and cities. The host city for an Olympic Games is chosen 7 years ahead of the event. The process of selection is carried out in 2 phases that span a 2-year period. The process starts when a city wanting to host the Games applies to its country's Olympic group. If more than one city from the same country gives a proposal to its NOC, the national group chooses which city will run for host. The first step, once the deadline passes, is to ask the cities to complete a questionnaire which covers many key points in the organization of Olympic Games. The evaluation of the field questionnaires by a group provides the IOC with an idea of each city's project and their potential to host the Games. On the basis of this evaluation, the IOC chooses the applicants that will proceed to the candidature stage. Once the candidate cities are chosen, they must give to the IOC a bigger presentation of their project as part of candidature file. Each city is analyzed by an evaluation group. This group will also visit the cities. The group gives a report on its findings 1 month prior to the IOC's final decision. During the interview process, the candidate city must also guarantee that it can fund the Games. The IOC members gathered in the meeting have the final vote on the host city. By 2016, the Olympic Games will have been hosted by 44 cities in 23 countries. The United States has hosted 4 summer and 4 winter Olympics, more than any other nation. Among Summer Olympics host nations, the United Kingdom has been the host of 3 games and hosted as third Olympics in 2012 in London. Germany, Australia, France, and Greece are the other nations to have hosted the summer Olympics twice. Among host cities, only Los Angeles, Paris, Athens, and London have played host to the Olympic Games more than once, with each holding that honor twice. With the 2012 Games that took place in London, the British capital holds the distinction of hosting the modern Olympics Games 3 times more than any other city. Paris will be the second city to host the modern Olympics Games. And this is all about the Olympics Games. Thanks for watching.